Hello, how are you doing? Welcome to an episode of my podcast. Hello people, how are you? I hope you've had a wonderful week. I hope next week is even better. I had a week, not a week, you had a very cool weekend and things piled up at the end. That makes it even better for me. I love having activities and things scheduled. In a little while I'm very much into the UTA show, so I'm also very happy because I'm cool. But nothing, the truth is that I am having a very good end to it, it makes me very happy. As you already know, all week we do this dynamic in which we talk about something good that has happened to us. In the least that you believe to be so, only good for you. Obviously, I invite you to comment on it. I'm not going to say any good news of the week because the reality is that if I had to praise, what news would be is that, my end of general. I don't want to do too much introduction in the video and we're going to talk about expectations about other people. The expectations that we place on people is a very interesting topic. So prepare a mate in a cafe and enjoy. I was a person who previously expected a lot from others. I placed a lot of expectations on people. I don't know about expectations, but I did expect to receive things from the other person. And for me one has to expect something from the other because we are human beings and the truth is that we, no matter how much we do things or have gestures and the intention that the other person will give it back to us. We will always be waiting for something on the other side, but I say, it is waiting for something to confirm that there is, I don't know, a link, a relationship that is precisely reciprocal. And that's why I give you give me each one in their own way, right? I don't think we should put expectations on people because if that were the case, and if the other person wasn't giving anything back to us, the symbol would be a bit strange. But let's say that that person gives the friendship, the couple, whatever bond it may be. That is to say, I feel that for a bond to be a bond one has to give, but one also has to receive. So, I feel that in a way it is okay for us to expect something from the other person. But it is also not okay when we all the time start expecting something and all the time we put expectations on the other person and I even hope that when we do things for the other person to return the gesture, for the other person to do something for us. No. That should never be done. And if I learned something over time, it's that you shouldn't expect anything from anyone. I mean, yes, you have to expect things from people in a sense as a symbolic means, as I say at the beginning of the video. But you really don't have to expect anything from anyone because you never know when a person can disappoint you or a person can surprise you, even, no. It's not always a negative thing. I was a person who always put expectations on others and you are always waiting for them to do something, right? And not something like a nice gesture towards me precisely, but for example a situation occurs to me. I would go and have an argument with someone or I wouldn't get into a fight with that person. I hoped that after the discussion, for example, that person would react the way I wanted them to react. Is it understood? For example, I get into a fight and I say, well, the least I expect is that if I think I have reason to argue, that the other person comes and asks for my forgiveness, right? Minimum or make a gesture at me in detail, humane but do it. Things were so sinful that they made me pay attention to each other all the time. All the time I was paying attention to how the other person acted in a certain situation, how they solved a certain thing, how I don't know, to expect things in general from people in whatever situation. And over time, when people, I repeat, disappointed me, mostly they disappointed me or surprised me, I learned that you should not expect absolutely anything from the other because you never know, firstly, that you never finish knowing the other in their entirety and secondly, that these things are communicated. People talk to each other. Being angry or demanding something from the other person happens a lot because they didn't do something that you never expressed or you never communicated. People had it so normalized to assume things like the other. You already know how I feel in this situation, the other already knows how I'm going to react and the other already knows what I'm going to do now. Those things no matter how stupid or typical they may seem to you because one clearly says, I know myself very well, I assume and believe that the other person knows me very well, obviously you are going to see how I want that person to react in this situation. For example. And we take it for granted because we are used to it because it is us, but that is wrong. You should never assume absolutely anything, and on the contrary, you have to communicate things to stop putting a false expectation, because the reality is that if you complain about something that you never communicated, well, this is an expectation phase about that person because you believed that that person was going to tell you what you wanted to hear, that he was going to do what you wanted him to do. And if you never communicated it before, if you never told the other person, I want you to do this when I anger, when I'm sad, I would also like you to throw things like that. They are minimal nonsense, but in a bond in the long run it affects because one is expecting something from the other. As I said at the beginning of the episode, as one expects something, one does not know what precisely, but one sometimes expects something. Most of the time it is fine, it is normal to expect something. Because the bonds need that thing back, but if you never communicated, or if you see that this situation has already happened repeatedly and that person does not actually react, he is not doing what I would like, 3 to go and talk about it. You can do it from the first instance, which would be ideal, or you can do it after it has happened once and you see that that person really does not know you as much as you thought they knew you, which is fine. There is no reason sometimes, or perhaps from their point of view acting in different ways was better. You never know the specific reason, but then what you have to do is go and communicate and be frontal and say, this happens to me, this happened to me. I would not be that if this situation is repeated in the future, then react in this way, in doing it this way, because that is how arguments and fights and the craziest things in a relationship arise, which is getting angry about something that at the end of the day you did not communicate, or if it is a little your fault, because you assumed that the other person knew something that no, they did not know. That's fine, that I do not know. Because each one grows and each one has totally different realities, just as you would like that person to react. If in another way perhaps the other person is expecting something from you, different, perhaps the other person expects me to act like her, I would act in that situation, and it is not fair to demand these things when you did not communicate them, and much less when those expectations or that idea that you had of the other, or that they were going to be such a thing for you, or that they were going to react in such a way, are simply an image that you concoct in your head, because that can also happen, that another person is not meeting our expectations, because it is someone that we idealize. There is another issue, that is idealization. I'm not going to go into that too much because I have a whole episode talking about idealization, but many times we put together an image of a person in our head, like this person. We don't idealize him so much at the level of saying, he's perfect, there he is. Don't be inhuman. That person is going to know what to do and you're going to see how to solve it. Maybe he does know, maybe at certain moments he knew how to solve and knew how to do what you are in, but if you never communicated, or if not even, type if you are loving or have been altering someone or loving someone, that's simply an image. That expectation will never be fulfilled because it is in your head, because that person is not like that, and many times it happens and we put it together as an idea, even consciously. It is not always something conscious that we do it. It is not that we unconsciously put together ourselves in our head the image of a person, that this person surely is like that, and that this, and we do not realize it, or we really believe it with all our hearts. But it is not like that. Sometimes it does not happen, and it does not happen. It is okay, it is normal, or I do not know if it is well, but I say it can happen. And when these things happen, what we have to do is identify it, how to talk about it. Everything always comes, and everything is always going to spread in the communication. If you constantly talk to this person, if you constantly communicate, step less, you know what the other person is like in the field, you know how he interacts, you know there are probably what answers he will have, so from that you can, if it were a little, yes, it's your image, yes, maybe let's say it's not always the image behind the head, it can also be obsession and infatuation, a lot of things. And of course when this situation happens that the other person doesn't act as I would have acted, of course it's a commotion what we did, because we started to get indignant. I don't know if it's happened to me. This thing happens to us of getting a little indignant because it's not right. That's when we have to do a little bit between the requests ourselves, because it's really not right. Like putting normal in quotes, because the other person didn't do what we expected, or because they didn't do what we would have done, because we say it's common sense, but with what criteria? Or because I feel that when these things happen, like we take a position of we are the center of the world, we are all we are. Absolutely right, because of course in our reality of life it is a little like that. In our reality we want that we have the reason, but the reality is that there is more reality, and that other people have different points of view regarding the situation. So The worst thing you can do to yourself is to put yourself in that role of you didn't do what I would have done. You can say it to another person in an aspect of values. No, well, I have these values. The truth is, if we discuss, the first thing I do is apologize, for example, because they are my values. Well, you can put it that way. Now you can't get indignant or angry because the other person perhaps didn't grow up in the same area as you. He did not have the same education. Perhaps he had a different relationship with the family, with his friends, loves, so it is like there is another depth to the subject to put ourselves in this position. I think that the worst thing we are going to do is put ourselves in this position of I would have done this first because it is unnecessary because the other person did not do what you would have done. So well, you can ask this if you want the bond to continue and if you want it to be better and if you would like the other person to act that way in a good future. You can put it on the table now. How to come with indicating and demanding is not good because each one has a different reality, and here you have two options: either you accept the reality in which a great person or you don't accept it. No, but God is like, or you accept the other as he is, or you only accept the other person for how you want him to be, for how you want him to act with you. I'm like a reflection. I'm like doing that. I'm going to fart. I'm not going to fart, but I am putting myself in this situation of introspective questions that one does not usually think and one does not usually reconsider. I even tell my mother with me because this, well, I am willing to accept others as they are or only as I want that they are taken for granted. The answer is the first. With time one realizes that it is the first, but sometimes it can happen, or it can happen that we are demanding too much. In a relationship that we are all the time like this, he is always expecting something from the other is what makes us put him a little in this situation of I expect this from you and I want this and this and this, and really it's not good. And that's why you have to talk about these things 100% because you can't all the time. Maybe how to demand that the other person changes their way of being so that it adapts to you. It's not good, or it's done a little and a little, as I say in the links. It's given and received and just like you want. Maybe the other person changes something because you don't like their way of acting. Possibly the same thing happens to the other person. Maybe the other person comes one day and says, I don't like this. I don't like you. I don't like how you react, for example, and well, you're also going to have to give for that bond to create, almost like that. You think so, there is, if you, this because we are repeating patterns because we already had, I don't know, a friendship that reacts that way and it went wrong because out of nowhere, it's like we see each other almost now. Or rather it already happened to us no matter how much we decipher it. Or is this why it became conscious or unconscious? Maybe we see ourselves a little bit trapped in that situation, but it's nothing that has happened. Been a little introspection we didn't let's really realize, that is, I think that we sit down and we can think for 2 seconds about what is happening to us and we can try to decipher if it is really the fault because there is not always a fault, but we are going to say yes if it is my fault or the other person's fault. We should not start talking from what one needs in a relationship and not wait, and it is also very crazy. Try this, I recommend it to you. At a time when of course this began to happen to me that I realized that all the time you are expecting things from the people that all the time I felt disappointed in the other because I genuinely felt like all the people disappointed me. They don't need that. But I felt capable. It happened to me like a thirst for people who felt like they were disappointing me because not everything was the way I wanted, and of course because the fact of waiting so much for the other ruins you too, that is, put it on yourself because you are waiting for them to do something that you want them to do and he has what he felt was perfection. Something about the other. Start to put yourself in a third person. Don't start to see the relationship, the bond you have with this person from whom you expect a lot, from whom you have a lot of expectations, and put the third person relationship and observe that, look at what they do, see how they react and don't expect anything from them. It's complicated because this is what the beginning said, we're always expecting something from people, but try not to expect anything specific, try to settle for what they do, not forever but as an experiment in certain situations to see what happens to you and to see how it works. Feel, let's say, your body, move away from expecting something from the other. I propose it like this, not that it's something definitive, of course, because if you have a long-term relationship, like let's say I saw it in the future, it's not difficult for you to conform. In other words, the reality is that things that bother you are communicated, but I say, as I propose, as a small kind of activity, observe and see what happens to you. I swear that when you think about it, when you stop expecting things from others, they are happier because the only person who is disappointed when someone doesn't do something that you believe. You are yourself, the other person does not move you, it does not affect you because the other person acts more on their cities and their values. The only one who leaves neither a do nor a di nor a day is you, and that is not good. Of course, if you get this far, I hope you liked the episode. I hope you liked it. It could be a reflection of you. Let's say those things are also interesting and very analyzable, but hey, thank you very much if you made it this far. I hope you liked the episode and I'll see you next time, friend. Goodbye.